Bao nhiêu năm rồi còn mãi ra đi. Bao nhiêu năm rồi còn mãi ra đi, đi đâu lên khoan cho đôi môi mẹ. Bao nhiêu năm rồi còn mãi ra đi, đi đâu lên khoan cho đôi môi mẹ. Cho nó ba tha đôi vang nhạc quê, con mãi trường đàm mà có đi về. Yeah. Shake the snake on the flute today, come on brother. I went down to the crossroads, fell down on my knees. I went down to the crossroads, fell down on my knees, yeah. Ask the Lord above mercy, take me here if you please, yeah. Got the blues, come on. Oh, yeah, we got the blues, Jake. Come on, brother. Oh. Bao nhiêu năm rồi con mãi ra đi, đi đâu lên khoan cho đôi môi mẹ. Bao nhiêu năm rồi con mãi ra đi, đi đâu lên khoan cho đôi môi mẹ. Cho nó ba tha đôi bang nhà quê, con mãi trường đàm mà cô đi về. Come on, Dick. Hey.
That Vietnamese is pretty good.
Thank you, dear.
Well, now, that is a Chinh Kum Sun rendition, and I must say it's a one of a kind. I haven't heard anything like that before. Well, on this Talk Vietnam, he is our guest. Curtis King has been living in Ho Chi Minh City for the past 5 years now, and has started his own band, known in Vietnam as Lê Văn Tèo, which is a very common name, I guess. Well, we're going to talk to him today about his life here in Ho Chi Minh City, as well as the Curtis King Band. But before we get into it, let's take a little jump back in history and find out about Curtis King back then.
Playing the guitar since the age of 4, Curtis King from Ohio State of the United States now has his own band. It's probably one of the most well-traveled in Asia, as they performed and toured in about 20 countries. In Vietnam, fans know them as the Lê Văn Tèo Band. Curtis and his cast of world-class musicians and entertainers have been featured on MTV, BBC, China Central Television, and Zone FM radio in Vietnam. The band has played with international greats Deep Purple, local Vietnamese talents Trần Tuấn, Siêu Black, Hồng Nhung, Singapore's guitarist extraordinaire John Chi at the legendary rock and roll bar Crazy Elephant, and many other top performers from around the world. The band has recently experimented with an East meets West blues style using traditional Asian instruments. They are also involved in supporting the Vietnam Red Cross on issues involving Agent Orange.
Okay, Curtis, thank you for joining us on the program today. So we mentioned that you've been in Ho Chi Minh City for about 5 years now, but when did, tell us your story about how you came to Vietnam.
I first came here in about 1997 at the invitation of the lady that I work for now at Galaxy. Mm-hmm. I went to Hanoi at that time and then took a little side trip on the steam trains at that time. They still had steam trains down to Hue, only for about 5 days. But it left a big impression that Vietnam's a beautiful country.
Sure.
I was living in China at the time. And then I came again in about 2001 to play some music. A friend of ours was living here, came to Ho Chi Minh, played some music and said, wow, this is an amazing place. And then slowly started moving my guitars and things from Singapore, and in about 2003 started living here.
Here for good.
Yeah.
You've been touring with the band now. It's about 20 different countries, is that right?
We've played everywhere. Yeah,
a lot
about
of
20
places.
different countries. Mostly in Asia.
Right.
Singapore, China.
Right.
Thailand. But we've played almost everywhere in Vietnam.
Almost everywhere.
Almost everywhere, except for Sapa. I think that's the only place.
Ah, it's kind of hard to get your guitars
It's hard
up
to
there.
get.
That's why. But, you know, out of all the traveling that you've done, and you yourself have lived in so many different countries, what was it about Vietnam that made you say, hey, I want to stay here?
Well, the ladies are pretty beautiful here, I must admit. But
Can I ask, do you have a girlfriend?
Well, I can't tell. Yeah, a lot woman, maybe. It's a beautiful country. We've been lucky to travel all over the country, from north to south. And I think it's one of the most beautiful countries that I've ever traveled to. And there's still a lot more that we haven't seen. I haven't been to Con Dao, Phu Quoc. There are parts of the north that we haven't seen. So there's a lot to see here. And
A lot to see.
I think we should be here for a couple more years.
A few more years. Well, I'm sure your fans will look forward to that. Well, let's talk about your road to music, how you got into the music business in the first place. When did you start playing?
I just found, my mother sent me a photograph when I was about 2 years old.
Wow.
With a guitar. I don't think I was.
One? A plastic one?
I don't think I was playing then, but I started taking lessons when I was about 4.
About 4.
Took lessons for about 5 years, and then played the trumpet for a few years, and then quit for a couple years, and then got into the harmonica again, back into the trumpet, and then we've been playing with we started as an amateur band, and now we sort of call ourselves a professional band. In China in about 1995, we put together our first full electric band.
Wow.
And it's gone much better than any of us expected.
That's good.
We've played in many countries. We had a #1 selling CD in Indonesia, which was a big surprise. And
Huge fan base in Indonesia too, then.
Better than we expected.
That's great.
Commercially here in Vietnam, we have not yet launched our first official CD, but that's something that we're looking at doing. We've been on the radio here. We've been on TV here.
Did you come from a family of musicians? I mean, was it a
Not
family
really.
thing?
No. My father was half deaf, and the only thing in the family, my brother was very much into the whole rock and roll thing. Being from Cleveland, Ohio, they've got the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame there. Music was always in the neighborhood.
Okay.
My brother, friends, always playing the newest rock and roll CDs. So that sort of stuff.
A lot of influence from that. Okay, now going back to the name Lê Văn Tèo. Okay, anyway. Anyway, so the name, you know, it's kind of a familiar name as like a, to me anyway, it's kind of a comedic thing. So where did the name come from, actually?
Living in China for about 10 years, my family name was Li. Right?
Li, okay.
So the Lê comes from Li, and then my Vietnamese teacher gave me the name. I wanted something like Lê Văn, and I couldn't think for many weeks, and she's like, Tèo, farmer, okay. So that's where it came from, Lê Văn Tèo.
Lê Văn Tèo. So you have, it's like a fusion of, saw the performance before, it's kind of bluesy, a little bit of traditional music. You had Trịnh Công Sơn, who's a famous songwriter here in Vietnam, and also you include Vietnamese instruments. So what kind of music would you say you guys record?
We've been recording a lot of this fusion music recently. We had a girl from China who was playing the Chinese version of the danchang with 21 strings.
Wow.
We recorded about 4 songs with her. Some of those songs got on the Indonesia CD, but she's very far away, so we needed to find some local Vietnamese talent.
Sure.
And the next step is definitely to record some dan bao, which is a very Vietnamese sound. And also here in Vietnam, you have wonderful percussionists in the highlands, and you have the gong.
Sure.
So we're looking at recording some new things. We got a little bit bored recording just regular blues.
Right.
It's been done jazz, it's been done rock, it's been done. We have some wonderful musicians here in Vietnam, so why not bring them in?
Sure. Playing music here in Vietnam, Curtis has made many friends with well-known Vietnamese artists, and they play music together, jam, as well as get to know each other a little bit better. So let's take a look at that.
Every time Curtis and his friends meet, they take the chance to show each other something new. This time, Curtis brought along an unusual-looking flute. which he bought on the street some days before. Perhaps the newest thing at the get-together this time is the appearance of the newest member. Her skill at playing the two-string guitar made Simon, a veteran member of the Curtis King Band, curious. He finally decided to give it a try.
Ấn tượng đầu tiên thì là thấy mọi người rất là vui vẻ và rất là hài hước, rất là dễ gần.
Curtis seemed to focus more on the danbo, or monochord, played by his longtime Vietnamese friend, Minh Hà. He had a good reason to do so, as he wants to recreate the sounds of the danbo on his own guitar.
He said that this is a foreigner danbo. I know that song. I know. And this morning I tried. Mỗi lần gặp Curtis hay là ban nhạc của anh thì đều là một lần thư giãn. Bởi vì không có sự gò bó, cũng như là không có một cái gì, cũng như là lời mời đầu tiên anh nói với tôi là em tham gia ban nhạc này là vui là chính, thì tôi cũng càng ngày tôi càng nghiệm thấy câu nói của anh là đúng với cả cái ý nghĩa anh nói với tôi như trước đây là vui là chính.
Sharing a passion for the musical genres that Curtis plays and the way he plays them is also another reason for his friends to join him.
Curtis can play all kinds of music, everything from jazz to blues. I prefer when he plays rock and punk because that's what I like. So.
Playing the Jew harp, or danmoy, is another specialty of Curtis's, which he also treated his friends to at today's meeting. The weekly small music party among these friends ended with a joint performance. The merry melodies created by both Western and Vietnamese traditional musical instruments brought the musicians closer to each other, as they had done in past gatherings, and hopefully also in those to come.
So our guest on Talk Vietnam today is Curtis King, and joining us in the studio, we have two of his bandmates. We have Miss Minh Hà, who plays the danbo, which is the monochord we saw, and also Jake the Snake, who plays the flute. And we'll find out why you're called Snake later. But you've been with Curtis on many of his tours, is that correct? Performances?
I met Curtis about 2 years ago, actually.
And you've been playing ever since then?
Yeah, we just kind of linked up together, and I was playing a different kind of music, playing more jazz-like stuff, and Curtis asked me if I could play some blues and rock and roll on the bamboo flute.
On the bamboo flute.
And I said, yeah, let's do it. So he invited me on stage, and we just kind of meshed at that point. And
Clicked then?
It's been
2 years.
going on ever since, yeah.
Now, did Curtis give you the nickname Jake the Snake, or did that come earlier?
No, actually, that occurred from an actual snake bite.
Ah.
And
look
so,
at that.
so I have con rung on the ankle.
Con rung. Yeah, he has a con rung on his leg.
So that's where it really began for me, but it just kind of caught on, and we decided that would be a good
Stage name.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so it kind of stuck.
This is a question for the both of you, Ha and Jake. When you're on stage and you know you're playing with Curtis, how does it feel up there, Ha?
I feel very comfortable.
Very comfortable.
The first time he asked me to try with his band, I feel very nervous that how can the Vietnamese traditional musical instrument can try together with the jazz blue band.
Yeah.
So I just worry. But when I come to the stage and try with him, I feel very, very comfortable, and it's a very great.
It's a good experience.
Yeah, very interesting.
And so you feel good now. First nervous, and now you feel comfortable. It's great.
Very, very. And he gives me very good condition and good feeling to try with his band.
That's awesome. Very well done. And Jake, today, I mean, do you guys work together? Is it a lot of collaboration, or in terms of
It's pretty
producing?
spontaneous. You know, my incursion in the band is kind of like an expressionist painting. It's an impression. And Curtis gives me the space on stage to be very creative. Hence, it stretches me musically, but I'm very relaxed playing with Curtis.
That's great.
Just very relaxed.
That's what you kind of need on the stage, right?
You
Feeling
have to
relaxed
have that
and
because
comfortable.
it translates out into the audience, you know.
Sure,
So,
they can tell when you're nervous.
we get along quite well on and off stage.
That's great. Having Miss Hat play those traditional instruments on stage, Curtis, is that what you always intended to have when you came to Vietnam and started up this music?
Not really, not really. It's only been the last couple of years that I've realized that we can do this, where we bring in some traditional instruments. It takes a certain amount of understanding on my part of the instruments
Sure.
to know how to bring them in. We had some experience in China with the Dan Chang player. So I need to learn a little bit about the instruments. I don't know much about the Dan Bao, but I'm learning more about that and how it can come into the sound. For example, the Dan Bao, without an amplifier, you won't hear anything. So
Sure.
if we're playing in a rock band, how do we make the audience hear the wonderful music that she's doing?
When you work with Curtis, do you two work together to make these arrangements? Because you obviously know about the Dan Bao, and Curtis is still learning. What is that process like to put together the music?
We know each other very long time ago, but at that time he invited her, my band, to try with the Curtis King band. But at that time we're too busy. And right now I not try to with the girl band. Now I have a free time, so we try together, not for long time, but we must be mixed more and more.
Yeah.
And I think the Vietnam's traditional musical instrument very nice to mix together with the Western music, and especially is it blues, jazz.
It works well.
Yeah, because the color of the sound is very nice, and Curtis, he loves that sound.
I love that sound together.
Yeah.
Now, has there been any difficulty kind of moving into this blues world with your Dan Bao?
I think must be practice more and more, because must be have a good hearing, good
Ear,
yep.
yeah. You have to have a good ear. Sure.
No, maybe I have to practice more.
How about for you, Jake? I mean, how is it playing in a band with all these different, types of instruments and different cultures being melded together?
Well, because I play a traditional Asian instrument.
Sure.
I've always been fascinated by the indigenous instruments
Yeah.
in the country, and it's, but my background is a Western background, and playing a bamboo flute, I mean, everybody can relate to the bamboo flute, but to listen to her play just amazes me.
So have you guys ever tried playing the monochord? Have you ever taught Curtis how to play?
He tried already.
You've tried it? How did that go?
I can do it. I wanted to get into this about 2 years ago with the Dan Bao, and I found a girl from, I think she was from Hanoi, and we only needed about 8 seconds, right? And she wanted to charge me $500 for just this little 8-second segment. I'm like,
Wow.
I think I can do this myself. And I learned how to do it on the guitar using a different, can I show you?
Yeah, if you want to pull it
see?
up, a little demonstration.
guitar.
Yeah, this is Dan Bao.
We may not be able to hear it
That's
very
okay.
well.
This is Dan Bao guitar. So it's the same idea, like they're plucking a harmonic, right? So the sound goes up and
I
down.
see.
Same as a Dan Bao.
So you played on the guitar.
So I did it myself and saved $500.
So not exactly playing the Dan Bao, though.
It was close enough that most Vietnamese people, when they heard it, they're like, "Oh, that's a nice Dan Bao." And I was like, cool.
Couldn't tell the difference. All right, fooled them.
But
And
guitar and bow.
we had $500 worth of beer that day. That was,
There you go. Spend it another way, right? You save $500. Can you play any other traditional instruments?
I can get by on the Dan Chai. Flutes, no. There's a different kind of bamboo flute, but Jake is the expert at that. No, that's it.
That's it. Just the guitar.
That's it.
Try. So Curtis, in your band, you have, as well as Vietnamese players as well. How do you find their kind of adapting to the new environment? Are they quick learners?
The Vietnamese musicians that we've played with, Most of them are very skilled. Their fundamental skills and background are very strong.
Sure.
But many of them have not had a lot of exposure to playing with a rock band or a blues band or a jazz band. These are things that are not taught in the schools here. So most people who play traditional instruments will play traditional songs.
Sure.
So it takes a little bit of time for the blues and jazz and rock music to get in their ear. But once they get it, like Miss Ha, we've only played together, call it 10 times. From the first time to the last time, the improvement has been incredible, very fast.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Jake and Ha, for talking to us today and talking about Curtis.
Oh, yeah.
Now, in addition to this Talk Vietnam that you're on right now, you've participated in various other television programs and radio programs.
Right.
What are a few?
We've been on Zone FM. Zone FM has been very good at helping us release some of our music in Vietnam.
Okay.
We played the Agent Orange benefit concert in March of this year at the Opera House. That was, I think, our biggest show so far in Vietnam in terms of production. We've been on a few. We've been in the newspaper quite a bit, many magazines, but this is the first talk show. Yeah.
And we're learning more about you, Curtis King. Do you see that there's a potential, though, for there to be maybe a jazz explosion here or a trend coming up?
You have to give credit to people like Chan Man Thuan here in Saigon, or the Min's Jazz Club up in Hanoi, where they are trying to get the locals to come in and listen to the music and expose the locals to jazz. Nobody's really doing that for blues. Those guys a little bit, but they're more jazz. But slowly. And as Vietnamese people perhaps see more of it on TV, maybe they see us on TV more, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So
And
they'll slowly
maybe catch on that way.
Yeah, maybe.
Through television.
This stage is actually incredibly narrow. It's no more than a corner of this jazz club, but it's no problem. The only thing Curtis cares about at the moment, perhaps, is to play with all his heart for his longtime fans, who come here twice a month to enjoy his blues and rock and roll music.
Khi nghe nhạc của Curtis thì em cảm thấy là nếu có một cái gì đó nói về nhạc của anh ấy thì em sẽ nói là Curtis chơi ở đó có sự chân thật, đầy ngẫu hứng, sâu lắng, nhưng mà cái sự ngẫu hứng này nó cũng có một cái sự gạn lọc, tức là nó làm cho mình khi mình nghe mình cảm thấy là hoàn toàn đấy là cuộc sống, có trầm có bổng và cảm giác say.
I have been here since 2006 and heard him the first time here in Saxon Art, and he was one of the reasons why I came back, returned to here. Later on I heard him in acoustic, fantastic. He joined in with a band there. He's actually making a difference.
Curtis not only impressed his fans, but also his Vietnamese colleagues. Among them is Chan Man Thuan, one of the best jazz musicians in Vietnam, who has known him for 5 years.
Để có một cái phong cách như Curtis chơi nhạc blues và nhạc rock and roll nên tôi có thể nói rằng đương nhiên ở Việt Nam thì chưa có nghệ sĩ nào mà chơi được ra phong cách như là Curtis King. Và tôi thấy ở Curtis một cái là anh ấy rất là đam mê âm nhạc. Curtis rất là máu me, gọi từ một từ rất là đam mê, và những người bạn của anh ấy thế nữa cùng chơi trong cái nhóm của anh, tôi thấy là các người bạn của anh cũng vậy, các nghệ sĩ đó họ rất là đam mê. Mỗi lần có tới họ trên sân khấu thì họ chơi hết mình.
Some other members of the audience, when asked, also agree that Curtis's total devotion to playing music is a defining trait of his style, and that it also inspires them to come back for his next performances.
Now, you mentioned before that you're from Cleveland,
Right.
Ohio, in the States, home of rock and roll, home of Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Does that affect your style of music at all? I mean, we hear some blues and jazz, but how does the rock play a part of it?
When I was a kid, you know, there's a reason that they chose Cleveland for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It was in Cleveland that they invented the word rock and roll. One of the old DJs invented the word. So Cleveland has always been on the music map, the rock and roll map. And as a kid, you know, we grew up listening to that kind of music. We play a lot of music like Chuck Berry, old school rock and roll. That sort of comes from that Cleveland sound. Detroit is Motown, Chicago blues, New Orleans jazz. Cleveland rock and roll.
Some influence there.
Some influence.
So today, the music that you do, what do you try to focus on? How would you describe your style?
We play a lot of we play a lot of corporate parties. So for those shows, we try to be an entertainment band.
Okay.
But when we're playing more for ourselves or for jazz or blues festivals, the focus now is trying to bring in the traditional Asian instruments.
Okay.
And also the harmonica. I'm getting more into the harmonica. Usually you see me playing guitar, but the harmonica might be my better instrument. So
really? You might be better at playing the harmonica than...
Yeah.
So the kind of mouth instruments.
Organ. Yeah.
Mouth organ.
Mouth organ.
You also play another type of mouth organ or mouth instrument, which is the Jew's harp.
We do have
play
one
that?
of...
Do we have one?
I do have one.
Can we hear it?
Do you want to hear that?
Sure.
These come from Sapa, somewhere around there. And it goes something like this.
There you go. Deep. Well done. Oh, Jew's harp. You can try and incorporate that into your act.
We put that on one of our recordings.
Did you?
Yeah.
And you were playing it?
I was playing it.
You were playing it. Nice. So, in the recordings that you do, or maybe the performances, how much a part of is the traditional Vietnamese music? How much a part of it is it?
We'd like to make that the standout sound.
The standout sound.
You know, we can play electric guitars and harmonicas, but it's all been done before. So to create something new, the dan bao, the dan chang, bringing those sounds and making them the predominant instrument in the recordings seems to be catching people's ears.
Sure, it's unique.
Yeah.
A definitely unique sound. Not many people out there do it. Now, tell us more about your own kind of the own combination of different types of music that you do. For example, earlier we saw you doing a really interesting rendition of a Ching Kum Sun song and adding a little bit of blues into it as well.
Right,
I mean, can you talk more about that, please?
I guess the idea is to create something that is new, that I don't think anybody has played Ching Kum Sun in a jazz or blues style. Hong Yum did a little bit of it, and it's a very nice recording. But for a foreigner to do that, it catches people's attention. The Vietnamese are,
They're like, he's singing in Vietnamese?
What is that? Or they're not sure if it's Vietnamese.
I'm sure they could make
it's
out
fun.
the
It's
lyrics.
fun. We're having fun.
It's fun for you. 2007, I read that you successfully introduced EMI to Vietnam. EMI, the record label, I believe.
Right.
Something that is very new to Vietnam, the whole record label idea, international record label.
Right.
That is, and it's maybe bringing a new wave of the music industry into Vietnam.
Right.
So can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. My professional background is suit and tie, corporate. For about 2 or 3 years in Singapore, I was the manager of the Tower Records, a big music company that was selling CDs and DVDs and all that. So I've been involved in the music industry for about 8 years now. The EMI deal was, based on old contacts from the Tower Records days. So there's interest in Vietnam. The foreign music companies are looking at Vietnam. They're not convinced yet that they're going to make money. Because it's difficult to make money on music in Vietnam. And where is the money coming from in the music industry? So Sony, BMG, Warner, EMI, Universal, the four major music companies, they're looking at Vietnam. They've tested the waters with a few deals. Nothing big yet.
Nothing yet.
But we're hoping that slowly the conditions will improve and these companies will come in.
Now, for Vietnamese artists who are trying to break into a different market, this EMI deal could really be the big break for them, right?
It's difficult. I'm not convinced that the rest of the world wants to hear Vietnamese artists singing in Vietnamese.
Okay.
I think that's a small market, maybe for the overseas Vietnamese.
Okay.
My own opinion would be that there would be more interest in songs that are sung in English, but incorporating some Vietnamese and Asian instruments into that music, and that's what we're trying to do.
Your genre of music,
Yeah.
more or less. So it's looking for that collaboration, more or less. Some little Asian tones, but with more of a mainstream kind of sound.
Yeah, for the Vietnamese artists, Vietnam is changing very quickly. You have Vietnam Idol.
Yes.
The next year you will have the Asia Vision Song Contest, which is a franchise of the Eurovision Song Contest that's brought in by Galaxy. So there will be opportunities for some Vietnamese artists to sort of rise up and then go international.
Maybe break through.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, during his time in Vietnam, playing his music, Curtis King has done also a lot of charity concerts. And you mentioned one, which was the Agent Orange concert in March of 2008. It was very successful here in Ho Chi Minh City at the Opera House. You raised about $625,000 US for the cause, which is a massive number, I must say, concert. And it also was a way to raise awareness about the issue. So let's take a look at that.
Nghe cái tên Lê Văn Tèo rất là gần gũi và bình dị đúng không? Như vậy thì tại sao anh lấy cái tên là Lê Văn Tèo?
Bởi vì sinh ra ở nhà quê, anh là nông dân. Giống như nông dân Việt Nam tên là Lê Văn Tèo.
Vậy thì tên thật của anh là gì ạ?
Curtis King.
Thưa anh Tèo, như vậy thì trong buổi tối ngày hôm nay anh có cái cảm xúc đặc biệt như thế nào không?
Hôm nay là ngày đặc biệt, hôm nay là lần đầu tiên người nước ngoài tham gia chương trình này được. Và ban nhạc Lê Văn Tèo hy vọng người nước ngoài nhiều hơn người nước ngoài biết vấn đề chất độc da cam. Miss Iana on the violin. Miss Jana. Oh child, forgive my father. I'll help you stand. Tell all my brothers, yeah, take my hand. I'll help you stand. S'il vous plaît.
Những bé thơ này xin em đừng cúi đầu, nơi anh nỗi niềm mang theo giọt quá nhiều nắm tay này cùng đứng lên nào. Năm xương người chúng tôi đã qua bao nỗi đau hối hận nhiều, hối hận nhiều.
How did you decide to get involved in the issue, Agent Orange issue?
It was about 5 or 6 years ago that we, were playing in the band, and we thought that you know, Vietnam at that time in particular, there were parts of Vietnam that were very badly affected by the war, Agent Orange, and it appeared that we could do something. We came up with the idea of working with the Agent Orange Fund, with the under the Red Cross here in Saigon. They've been particularly easy to work with. Miss Lily from the Red Cross, very friendly, very open to the idea of having foreigners come in and try to help raise funds, and I think more importantly spread the message on the website that we did. We laid out all the information, I think, in a way that the foreigners can look at it and understand it.
Okay.
And I was very surprised by how much money was raised by the concert.
$625,000, yeah.
It was completely sold out, and it was a wonderful experience. Yeah.
Sure, to be part of that. Now, any interesting memory that you have from that experience performing? It was aired on VTV, yeah?
Yeah. It was very stressful. It was a very stressful show because it was the first time that the Vietnamese had foreigners involved in the show. And it was the first time that we attempted to play a big show at the Opera House. So we had exactly 2 minutes to set up an entire stage.
Oh my goodness.
And everything was okay. Miss Tao brought in her drums and everything. It all came together, but my amplifier, which was sort of key for, you know, playing the songs, it wasn't working.
Oh.
And so with 15 seconds left, we tried all the buttons, and all of a sudden it went on, and the curtain went open.
Great timing.
It was close.
So that was your little bit of the whole crew.
My heartbeat was going very fast at that moment.
Now, you mentioned earlier the song "Take My Hand,"
right.
And it was you did a record, a single of it. Is that right? You made it into a single, and it was kind of a poignant song for that concert. Right. It's kind of raised hope for Agent Orange. What inspired you to write it?
We knew that we needed a song. If we're going to, you know, if we're going to be musicians in support of a cause, you need a song.
Sure.
So I wrote it when I was in Hue, visiting some of the old military zones. Wrote a simple song. Had a few people help me with the lyrics and the ideas, but keeping it very, very simple. It's if you listen to the lyrics, it's a very simple song that anybody can understand. And when it was translated into Vietnamese, again, it's simple, but emotional.
So it was from the experiences that you had touring these war areas, conjured ideas of what the war would have been like?
When you look at the kids, you know, the Vietnamese kids that are affected by the Agent Orange, you look at that and you say, we have to do something.
Sure. Well, thank you very much, Curtis, for joining us. But before we say goodbye, I have to ask for another song. Yes?
Wonderful.
Okay. job. Curtis, thank you so much for talking to us today. Thank you, the Curtis King Band, for playing for us. I wish you all the best of luck in playing for Vietnam and the rest of the world. Show them what you got.
Thank you.
That is it for this Talk Vietnam. We'll talk again next time. Bye.
Oh, thank you.
There you go.
Wonderful.
Took him a while.
Can't read, if I can't write, my whole life has been one big fight. Born under a bad sign, I've been down since I began to crawl. If it wasn't for bad luck,